Dileep, how are you doing?
Oh, hello. Good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you.
Good afternoon. As we know, Bumi will conduct a private placement corporate action with the issuance of more than 28,000 Series C shares. So what is the goal of this private placement?
Well, the goal is to conclude our debt repayment fully. Now, if you go back to history in 2017, Bumi had debt of $4.3 billion. We then did a debt for equity conversion at 926 rupiah per share for $2 billion. So the remaining debt was $2.6 billion. So these $2.6 billion were restructured into three tranches of $600, $600, and $500 million. And then we also issued OWKs, or mandatory convertible bonds, for the remaining value of around $600 million. Now, in October 2017, we have repaid 100% of our PKPU debt. So Bumi is PKPU debt-free. And what we have been doing since 2017 is also converting the OWKs or the MCBs or the mandatory convertible bonds into shares at a price which has been set by PKPU formula for each year. So in October, we had as good as fully paid and converted all our mandatory convertible bonds to overseas shareholders. What was left was about $126,000 worth of mandatory convertible bonds by local investors. Now, they have a right to convert these shares up to December 2024, which is the maturity date. So out of the remaining shares, or out of the remaining bonds from the local investors, 28,000 shares have been converted from the bonds. So that leaves barely about $110,000 worth of bonds yet to be converted, where no requests have been received. So you can very well say that it is approaching the end of our 2017 debt restructuring process, where 99.9% of the debt has already been fully paid. So it's merely another part of the process. It's the final part.
Dileep, we want to confirm, so along with this private placement, is the suspension of debt payment obligation or PKPU of Bumi will pay off?
It is, there's no suspension. There is no PKPU case at all. Bumi is debt-free, and it has no debt-related covenants or obligations.
Okay, Dileep, moving...
So
Okay, go on.
Carry on.
Yes, carry on.
We incurred an expenditure of $200 million of interest in 2021. In 2023, that will be zero.
Okay, Dileep, moving on to the coal price. As we know, last year, the coal price was at $400 per ton, and Mercan recently is declining around at $200 per ton. So what is your projection for coal prices this year, and what are the factors?
Well, these are all supply-demand related issues. And these all relate to geopolitics. It relates to coal production and supply. It relates to the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. But when you talk about price, I would say that even though the coal price had momentarily hit $400, It has now started correcting because physical availability of coal is better. And the traditional markets of Indonesia were largely China and India and other parts of Asia. But ever since the bans were imposed on Russian coal to the EU, we have found that Russia has begun to send its coal to friendlier countries. And because the winter has not been as severe as we thought it might be, there has been build up some stock. So there is presently a demand-supply imbalance, which is reflected in the physical index prices right now. But we think that as summer approaches, the prices may have moderated a little, but they should pick up in the second half of this year. So if you're asking for forecasts, I would think that by the end of this year, we'd be hitting a level of 250 to 300 again. And if the winter is severe, that is where it will remain for the medium term. What you must remember basically is that both China and India are putting up new coal-fired power plants, quite apart from looking at renewables, to maintain energy security. And that means while the demand for coal may continue going up, it also means that coal capacity is unlikely to go up. So there's likely to continue to be a supply-demand imbalance, which can keep the price anywhere between 200, 250 to around 300, 350 over the medium term.
All right, so
what one must remember is that in 2016, the coal price was $48. That forced us to restructure our debt in 2017. We are nowhere near that level of $48 at this point of time. It is still at least 4 times higher. And it looks like it can be 5 or 6 times higher as well in the medium term.
Okay, so the price will be moderate around $250 until $300 per ton and will be rebound in the second half in this year. Very interesting discussion, Dileep, but we have to continue our dialogue after this commercial break. So don't go anywhere. Sure. Mining Zone will be continuing after this commercial break. Okay. Stay with us.